I would much rather like have the freedom to hang out with my family and do what I want when I want than have to like run to Home Depot and get like, you know, like flooring or a toilet or something and like bring it to a job site because somebody forgot to do that. I don't have to do any of that. Zero.
All right, we got Tommy MaGill on the pod today. We have known each other from afar for a number of years, but not actually done much together.
No.
I run into you at the meetups. Mm-hmm. You're the big man in the room.
I don't know about that. I think that I stand in your shadow pretty well.
No way. Get out of here. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, you're very well known in the community, doing a lot of build to rent stuff, building. Who were you before you started investing?
I've always actually worked in real estate investing. Really? Yeah. I feel like I'm an anomaly in like our level of group because I've literally only done this.
Wow.
For the first 12 years out of college, I went to architecture school. So the idea was like so architecture school is like 5 years. So for the first, I'd say 3.5 years of it, I was like, I'm going to design buildings for a living. And then things started shifting a little bit for me towards the end. I had a girlfriend who cheated on me with a real estate developer.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I was like, man, if I could just not get cheated on again, maybe I should be a real estate developer. And it actually kind of really happened in a professional practice class that I took. And, you know, essentially they just broke down who gets the pieces of the pie. And they're like, 10% to the contractor, like 5% to the architect and 15%, and they're just breaking things down. I'm like, well, who gets the other percentage? And they're like, well, that's the real estate developer. I'm like, well, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it really kind of went from there. And when I graduated, I had to actually work for an architect for a little bit just because I wanted to, it's not that I wanted to, I actually put in my resume to like 30 different developers in New York City because eventually I wanted to move to New York City. No bites. Like everybody turned me down. And then I was like, all right, well, I have to get a job. So I worked at the architecture computer lab at nights and then worked for an architect during the day and literally just worked like, I don't know, 18 hours a day, every single day.
Wow.
And was just trying to pack money away to like, try and get to New York City. I don't know what drew me to it, but I really wanted to get up there.
Yeah.
So eventually, while I was working, this was in Miami. I went to University of Miami, like lived in Miami, worked in Miami, and I was building like high-rise condominiums. And this is in 2005, 2006. And met a guy who was like, hey, anytime that you want to go to New York, like, let me know. I'm like, dude, I want to go right now. And he was on the contractor side, and I actually worked for the developer. This is after I had got done with the architect. I worked for the architect for like 3 months and then got a job with this developer and then eventually met this GC. And the GC was like, I know somebody who I can get you a job with in New York. He's like, it's not going to be with the developer, but it'll be with the contractor.
Yeah.
I said, fine, I don't care. I just want to go to New York. So I moved to New York in 2007, worked for this GC. I was like the low man on the totem pole. And then the world came to a stop a year later.
Wow.
And luckily I was like the young guy in. I made nothing compared to everybody else. So they kept me on. I feel like I was good. My best friend in high school and college worked for Goldman Sachs. He left college and moved to New York City, and like he would work 20 hours a day every single day. And it kind of like instilled in me like I need to work that hard in order to be successful. So I would literally like get to work at 7:00 and not leave until like 9, 10 o'clock at night every single day, just to like say, hey, I'm going to outwork you. I might not be as smart as you, but I'll outwork you. No problem. So that lasted for about 5 years with a GC. Finally, I was like, I need to do something in order to pivot into development, and went and got my MBA in finance and worked like part-time and went to school part-time to like get the MBA. Graduated with my MBA. Then my first job with the developer was a developer that it's just I wanted to get out of my situation because the part-time job that I was working was a GC and didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy working for that company, but I enjoyed what I was doing like high-end renovations in New York City, which is like super cool. The clients that we worked with were like CEOs of companies. Just being exposed to people like that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then got a job with the real estate developer and thought like things are just going to take off from here. I didn't enjoy that job that much, but I would have stayed at it for a long time. But from like day one, my first job, this guy from Texas was one of like the VPs at the company. And he was like, oh, you should check out this company called Hines, which is based in Houston, Texas. And I was like, okay. So I kept applying for them like throughout the whole process of, working for 12 years. Every once in a while, I'll send an application, look on their website. So finally, while I was working, fast forward, I graduated with my MBA, got a job with this developer. I got a call from like a recruiter and they said, hey, we have this job, do you want to come in and interview for it? I said, sure. So I met with the recruiter. She said, you're going to meet with this VP and it's for this company called Hines. And I was like, whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Just get me in the room with these people. Because I'd wanted to work for them for like the past 10 years. The interview went well and they basically hired me on the spot. And it was like the defining moment in my career because they are the best developers in the world. Like I think they're the largest private developer in the United States. And I worked for them for 3 years before I moved to Charlotte and started my own thing. But just being in the same room with like, they are just on a completely different level from anybody that I'd worked for previously. Like, just incredible. Have you been to New York?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a building in Tribeca and they call it the Jenga building where like the high rise is like different shapes and like you look up and anyways, I was a part of the team who built that building.
Oh, cool.
It's like a 60-story, it's called 56 Leonard. Incredible building, incredible team to work with. And then went into some other projects and then went into that was on the construction management side, but then I went into the asset management side and started working with like Ivy League level people that are just super high level thinkers. Yeah. And that was probably like learned more in those, 3 years than I've ever learned throughout the process.
Wild.
Yeah. And
so you're doing all this like high level stuff, right? Big developments, high rises, working for some of the top companies in the country. Like, how did you get to single family residential?
So, so most of the buildings that I worked on were 50 stories and above. So with a building like that, it's minimum 2.5, 3 years from like start to completion. It's difficult to weather that, with like, you're not seeing a level of progress or a speed that you see in single family.
Yeah.
I got a small taste of it working on the high-end renovations where like some guy had a loft in Tribeca and was like, I want to renovate this, and this is going to be like, a place I have, like one of 3 or 4 places that he has. And it was like cool to see things happen quickly. So I was like, I want to flip houses because I have a certain level of instant gratification that I desire. So that's what I started doing was flipping houses because I wanted to get away from that 3-year schedule of, going from zero to finish,
Yeah.
it just takes so long, you
Yeah.
know? And there is graphic. I mean, like we were on like 1 and 2 day pour cycles on some of these high rises. So like between, floor 10 and floor 17 would be like a week's worth of work. And
Wow.
it's crazy. These like just the level of speed and craftsmanship with some of the subs in New York, it's crazy. And that's cool. You're like, well, on Monday I came and we're on floor, 10, and then on Saturday we're on floor 16.
That's crazy.
It's cool to see that progress. Yeah. But like from soup to nuts, I mean, it was like 3 years, sometimes more.
Wow.
So I really, wanted to get something that had more instant gratification. And then I really fell in love with flipping houses when I moved down here.
Tell me about your first deal that you did.
So I moved down here, August of 2007. But I did like a month and a half, like cross country road trip before I started. So I didn't actually physically start working until September. So I started September, and just was like, how am I going to think about this? So one of the things that I learned at Hines was like, you have to be an economic animal. You have to like immerse yourself in what is important and what like pushes or how do I say this? Basically focus on the economics of areas and what's important to it, and what highways go by, or moves people, or is there economic growth, is the job market increasing? All those things started to play into like my decision making process.
Yeah.
So the first house I bought was in Gastonia.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is in 2007. And I basically like was like going to, so I did a live-in flip in New York City where it was a 250 square foot co-op, which is kind of like a condo. And I got renovated it myself and sold it and made a decent return. It's been my highest return to date because I bought in 2012 and sold in 2017.
Oh yeah.
So in 2012, like nobody was giving loans. Like I had to give like a pint of blood and like rights to my firstborn in order to get that first loan. And so, got it, locked it in, did the renovation, sold it 5 years later, and made around $200,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, this is a great thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, look how much money you can make.
I'm a rock star.
And then I go and buy a house in Gastonia. So the mindset was, okay, what I'll do is, I don't have enough money to do multiple flips in Charlotte. So what I'll do is I'll start in Gastonia. I can do 2 flips at a time and then work my way into Charlotte. So I did, my first one was in like right off of 321, like South 321 on Ruby Ave or Ruby Street. And it was $74,000. I put in like $40,000 and sold it for like, I think 145, something like that. I did about maybe 30 or 40% of the work myself. And the only reason for that is because I didn't really know the contractor. I kind of wanted to keep an eye on him. He ended up being pretty decent. And then kind of like use half of my money for that one and then half of my money for the next one that I bought sort of like halfway through that one.
Yeah.
So that was around October, November of 2017. And the first one didn't sell until we finished probably in January or February, and didn't sell until maybe May or June. And like the other one was finishing too. Like, so I had 2 going, all my money's in one, all my money's in the other, had like maybe $10,000 left in my account. Wow. And I'm like freaking out. I had no idea if this was going to work, And so one hit. And then I had 2 or 3 investments in Philadelphia area that I'd bought with like a couple of friends that I went to business school with. And like the 10,000 was down to like 7,000 or something. And the guy who was kind of the lead on that was like, look, I can't do this anymore. Do you guys want to sell the properties? And I'm like, yes. So got like all my money out of that, gave me a little bit more runway.
Yeah.
The first one sold, the second one sold immediately. And then it kind of gave me that motivation, like, I think I can actually make this work.
Nice.
So for the first like 2 years, I only used my own money. And I did, the first year, I think I did 4 flips. The second year, maybe 8 flips. And just felt the momentum kind of like going. And then I was like, I think I can do this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So you started with a decent chunk from the sale of that New York condo.
Yeah.
Didn't use any debt.
No debt. No.
Nice.
Yeah. Everything was cash for the first couple of years. And that was intentional because when I left New York, there were guys that like I worked with that were like owned the GCs that we used. They're like, hey, anytime you want money to help out and blah blah, we'll fund some of your stuff. I said, let me try it on my own first to prove not only to you but to myself that I can actually make this work.
Yeah.
So it was a very intentional move, but I think that made me a lot harder because the decisions you make when you know it's like make or break and it's yours are, significantly more meaningful than if you're like, oh, well, I just got this loan from a hard money lender, know. And I'm glad I did it that way because I now think about every decision like it's my own money. This is make or break. I'm not doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have, Born to Lose tattoo on my chest. Like I have to do this like in order to survive basically.
Are you put yourself in like the risk averse category or are you just full on risky?
No. So I consider myself like the Daniel Day-Lewis of investments where like I pick and choose like the very specific ones that I want.
Yeah.
Like I'm very disciplined about the properties that I choose. I probably could do 10, 11 more properties a year if I just was like okay with, like, well, $30,000 is $30,000, and I'm like, well, the ones that I choose, I make $50,000, but it's still $30,000, right?
Yeah.
So like, you can get swayed with those things where you're like, well, 30,000 is, maybe a 12% return on investment, and it's still $30,000, but it's like, it's not a 20 to 25% return on investment. And I do those intentionally, one, because my life is easier. Even though it's harder to make those decisions, it's easier because I'm not like weighed down by, oh man, that one might not work.
Yeah.
So, and things, as you know, go wrong all the time.
All the time.
And, I pivoted from flips probably 3 or 4 years ago into new builds. So even in new builds, like in the dirt, like things happen.
Yeah.
So, I go in thinking I'm going to make, $50,000, $60,000 on a deal, end up making 35 because there was an abandoned septic tank that, obviously nobody knew about, and it's nobody's fault, but it's reality. And, so I'm very disciplined on the stuff that I choose.
Yeah. So how did you go from doing just builds to incorporating build to rent into your investment strategy? So
it actually happened probably 2 or 3 years into my investing, regardless of build or build to rent. I was just flipping houses and making a decent living, like 6 figures, and everything was all good. But then I had kind of this epiphany that like, if somebody approached me one day and said, hey, we want to buy your company, they wouldn't be buying anything besides my time.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have anything at that point. I think maybe I had a quadplex that I actually own up in Kannapolis or around here. And it was the only reason I had that was that a friend of mine was like, I'll show you the rental side of things if you show me the flipping side of things. And I said, okay. So we kind of did like this joint venture.
Yeah.
And then so the thought was, I want to create an actual company that's worth something. And I also want to, not pay the IRS like just $40,000 checks, every quarter, So I was like, let me like meet with my accountant, find out a strategy, and then start incorporating rentals into my investment strategy. I got away from flipping and doing like gut renovations and turning them into rentals to mostly just doing new builds and then new builds to rent. And that's kind of where
What led you to make that decision?
Part of it was scalability. I mean, the initial decision was like, I was having a hard time with teams, like renovation teams, where it's essentially like you got to find two guys. They got to do everything but, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And I had two good crews, and then that was it, and it was difficult to scale my business with two good crews. And I would integrate a guy, he'd fall on his face, get rid of him, integrate somebody, and then like, it just was like this vicious cycle of stress, And so.
And you testing somebody out on a project puts strain on your performance on it too.
Correct.
I mean, it's just not fun.
Yeah. And, and then I always kind of like had this mindset of, I want to make $100,000 a year. And then I was like, I want to make $200,000 a year. And I was like, I want to make $3. And then that mindset was like, if I had a bad guy on a deal and it was like September or October, and I'm like, if this guy doesn't finish by, November, then I'm not going to make that $300,000 this year. So, I'd fire him and just finish the work myself. And it was just like such dumb time spent,
Yeah.
So I tried to get away from that, get to a point where I could scale the business. And that's when I started doing new builds.
Nice.
Just for simple scalability, where I could do, 20 houses a year and like not have to invest my time in finding the properties, building the properties, selling the properties, all that stuff. So it was really about scaling the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Give me an oversight of like where things are at today.
So today I got my GC license.
Nice.
About 3 years ago, and was using it pretty consistently. And then just kind of like wanting to step back even more. So really today, my only job is finding deals. So I hired a property manager who works for my company. And she basically handles the rentals in conjunction with me. So my only like job is really to find land and to find money. But mostly land. I think I have access to enough capital right now that I can, do what I need to do.
Yeah.
But I just find land. That's all I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going over the next 5 years?
So it's pretty boring now. I don't know if you feel that. It's like you do the same thing over and over again, and it kind of loses its level of excitement. And I don't know if that's like, because I'm going into year 8 now, and I don't know if it's maybe like the 7-year itch that it's just like, I want to do something else, or I want to, maybe do like a custom build or something, to just get that like design, because part of the thing that I loved about the renovations was I got to reconfigure floor plans, remove walls, do cool things.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that anymore.
Yeah.
I literally am just like a machine. It's just like, put this plan there, put that plan there, and I work with incredible contractors who really make my life extremely boring. Like they're awesome. I don't have to oversee them. I literally just cut checks and they handle everything, So it does get boring. So in 5 years, I think that I'm going through a period right now that's just like, I just need to accept the fact that this is what it's going to be. And, I would much rather like have the freedom to hang out with my family and do what I want when I want than have to like run to Home Depot and get like a flooring or a toilet or something and like bring it to a job site because somebody forgot to do that. I don't have to do any of that. Zero. Like I have 2 or 3 solid contractors that can literally do everything. And so they make my life extremely easy, and I'm extremely grateful to them. And the goal is really to just keep packing things away.
Yeah.
What I do right now is I do between 15, the most I've done is 28 deals in a year. I really like to split them up like 50-50, depending on where the interest rates are. Like the interest rates are high, I'll sell 10 of them, buy down some of the debt on the other 10 that I hold. Mm-hmm. Or I'll do 8, and buy down the debt of the other ones. Like the idea is reduce my tax burden, pack enough deals away a year so that one day I can live, completely like free of having to like search for deals. Mm-hmm. Like now I have to sell. A minimum I have to sell is 2 deals a year. I have to sell 2 deals a year just to like cover my bases.
Yeah.
Obviously I want to sell more than that to help buy down the debt of the other ones that I keep. But, the idea is just for the next 5-10 years, is just keep packing them away. And that one day I have a portfolio that, just sustains my life. And I'm getting pretty close, and I'm pretty close right now. Take this year, for instance. Usually I buy 2 deals a month, and this year I bought 2 deals, and we're in May.
Wow.
And it's intentional because I haven't seen anything that's like worthwhile.
Yeah.
That, it's worth like overpaying for. And similar to you, I do like tertiary markets. Like I'm not buying in Charlotte. I'm not buying close, buying in Gastonia County and Cleveland County. Most of the lots that I buy are $15,000 to $20,000.
Yeah.
If I pay $35,000 for one of those lots that, I'm refining the deal out and, trying to make it cash flow, that $35,000 kills the deal. It's like, it doesn't cash flow.
Yeah.
So
it's more cash that you have to leave in it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that. Unless it's like a prime area. Like if I find something in Belmont or Mount Holly, I'm all over it. And, most of those deals I'll probably sell though.
Yeah.
And just keep the stuff out in like Kings Mountain, Bessemer City, Gastonia. Those are the ones that I hold on to and just, let build equity and cash flow.
Yeah. So we're like 5 months into the year. You've only bought 2. Mm-hmm. Is there any other like hidden concerns behind that? Like market concerns or anything like that?
No,
or you're just strictly nothing pencils?
Yeah. So like I've had a, pretty decent runway of lots that I've owned, from previous years. Mm-hmm. So I'm just, building the, what do they call it?
Your land bank.
Yeah. The land bank basically. So, I know the day will come where things will loosen up again.
Yeah.
But, I'm not a person who chases deals. I get calls all the time. Wholesalers get upset at me because I'm not willing to pay what they're asking. And it's just like, I finally am in a position to where like, if I want to take a step back, and it's not a step back because I don't feel like doing anything. It's a step back because like the deals aren't really there for me right now. Mm. And I'm not going to chase deals. I'm not going to make, poor decisions just to say like I'm in the game because like I don't really care.
Yeah. There's this guy who's in Collective Genius, mm-hmm. and he does big deals, like 400 or 500 unit apartment complexes. Mm-hmm. And last year we were having a conversation and he's like, I haven't done anything in 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's just, all he needs is that one, mm-hmm. but it's a big deal, right? So mm-hmm. it takes a lot of discipline and long-term vision to mm-hmm. be able to set aside those ones that are like a little bit more skinny,
right? And
just focus on being a lot more selective.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's something that you've refined over the last decade of being in this industry?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't like to lose. Like,
speaking of losing,
yeah.
Do you have any losers?
Yeah. The very first deal I did, which was in 2004, 2005, was like a condo that my friend and I purchased together. And it was a loser from the beginning. And like, we did this thing where it was like, I don't know, we met the wrong people. We were so young that like we didn't really understand things. And the very first deal that I did was foreclosed on. But like,
oh no,
we were like the dumb ones who like still paid for it after. Like most people just like took their ball and went home, which is why we had like the recession that we did.
Yeah.
We were the dumb ones who were like, no, we're going to be honest and hold ourselves accountable. And like, there was a difference between what the property sold for and what was owed to the bank. And we literally paid it off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How much did you lose?
Probably like $20,000. It wasn't crazy,
Yeah.
but for a 20-something-year-old, like
it's a lot of money.
It's everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But individually. So it was 20 to me and 20 to him. So probably 40,000 total.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That stinks.
Yeah. So like every week when I lived in New York, half of my paycheck would go to my friend to be like, we're going to pay this thing down. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such an honest guy.
Yeah. To a fault, I think. Because there are certainly a lot of people that like left millions of dollars on the table and are like, oh, well, that
sucks.
Yeah. That sucks for you, bank, Sorry, American population, really sorry. Yeah.
Wow. My level of respect for you has gone up a little bit. Well, I don't know if it's respect or concern.
Yeah. God, that guy is dumb.
Is that the worst?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So past that point, you haven't had many losers.
No, because luckily I lost on the first one and I know how it felt. And I know like the pain that it didn't, it didn't last like that moment. It lasted for years after that. Getting like multiple phone calls for the bank, and we, you got to do this, and and we're like, yeah, we're going to take care of you, but like we can't cut you a check right now, like one check, like we can pay over time. And so like it lasted for like 4 or 5 years of like pain and like, constantly getting phone calls from banks and like, and just saying like, hey, we're paying you, but we're paying you what we can, And so, it really sucked for a long time. And I'm happy that it was the first one because, luckily that it hasn't happened since then. Does it mean that like I'm never going to fail again? No, but like I'm trying really, really hard not to, which is probably why I'm super selective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially at this point, you've built up a portfolio of properties. You're paying down the debt on them. You're being a little bit more strategic. You don't want to step out and take risks now because then that affects everything else.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a good position to be in but it's taken me like 8 years to get, or 7.5 years to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see any challenges with the build to rent model? Because everybody says like the grass is always greener. Like I'm going to do build to rent. Like it's awesome. It's sexy. It's this, flashy thing. What are some of the challenges that you experience with it?
Well, I mean, I just think like fundamentally it doesn't really work. It's just like you have to leave money in the deal for it to work. If your thesis is that it's going to cash flow, I don't have any build to rents that cash flow from, and it might be the location that I'm in because the rents aren't as high, but like I have to leave money in every single one that I do in order for it to cash flow. Yeah. And my objective is to cash flow, to at least have, a couple $100 working in, the deal so that, I can just keep piling on that.
Yeah. When I first started diving into this world, investing, reading, it was Bigger Pockets, the forums, podcasts, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And my inauguration into understanding rental property investing was the BRRRR model. You buy something, you fix it up, you rent it out, you refinance, and you can pull all your money out, right? And so going into the build to rent model where you actually have to leave a good chunk of cash in it to make it work is a big shift. But it's almost like it's just a little bit more of a sophisticated level of investing because it's more about the long term, the tax benefits than it is the immediate cash flow.
Sure.
Right. In theory, you should have limited capital expenditures in the first 5 years or so, comparatively to these older houses that you're piecing together, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at all that stuff collectively, it's a fantastic investment model, but a lot of people are going to get priced out of it because it just doesn't make sense because you have to leave so much cash in the deal, right?
Right. I mean, collectively, with all those things that you just mentioned, you don't have to leave as much money in, but I still like in order to like day one cash flow, you have to leave money in.
Yeah. Walk me through like a typical built to rent deal that you do, like numbers, purchase price, all that stuff. How much are you leaving in?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
I just did 4 like right in a row and basically sold 2 and kept 2. The 2 that I sold, I left $20,000 in the deal and it cost me about 135. So like the 2 of them were nicer, for sale properties, intentionally nicer, a little bit more square footage, a little bit better finishes, with the idea that I was definitely selling those. The other 2, same bed bath mix, but, a couple hundred square feet smaller, intentionally in that so that I could rent them out. So those 2, the rentals cost about 135 vertical cost to build, plus the 7,000 and change tap fees. So maybe like all in with the land, which was 1875, was what's that? 50, maybe 165, 170,000. That one didn't leave a whole lot in the deal just because it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
So probably left about $20,000 in there. Refied at like 155 or so. And then, it cash flows maybe $150 a month.
Yeah.
But I self-manage, but I don't consider that as like cash flow because I'm really like paying myself because I'm, technically paying somebody to like work for me. So, I consider that, actual, like property management fee.
Yeah. So you're somewhere around that 1%.
Oh yeah.
By the time you
and those ones rent for about 16 to 16.25 a month.
Okay.
So yeah, they're right around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it pencils out.
Yeah.
I mean, $100 a month isn't going to change your life.
No, not one,
not
but
now,
like 50 will, you know? So that's the objective is just like keep building and packing them away because, eventually I honestly feel that the interest rates are going to come down to around 5.5, when like the uncertainty of the world kind of levels out. But even if it doesn't, I'm okay with like 6.5 and it's pretty close to 6.5 now.
Yeah.
So, I can kind of make that work because there's so much equity in the deal. And so it's that when I refied it at like 50, I think it was like 58%, LTV. So there's still a lot of equity in a lot of them. So even if like something were to happen, I could still sell them. Even if at a discount, I could pull a lot of money out of them. So
it's a good deal.
Yeah.
So is your plan to just accumulate and then pay down the debt slowly, just kind of compound it that way?
Yeah. There's also a part of me that's like, I want less, but like, almost own them outright.
Yeah.
To where I'm not managing 60 units, I'm managing 30, but like 30 that are almost paid off, or I'm cash flowing, maybe $1,500 a month,
I'm telling you, there's something to that.
There really is. There really is.
There are 3 guys that I know that are investors. They've been in it since the early 2000s. They've got portfolios in the, 60 to 70 range up to the 100 plus. And all their stuff is paid off. Yeah. They're the only 3 guys that I know that have that. And they are the most stress-free, carefree individuals that I know.
Yeah.
And sure, they could probably refinance and roll into the 1031 to a bigger portfolio and this and that, but taking on that debt.
Yeah.
But I envy their lifestyle, but it takes a lot of discipline to get to that point where you're paying all that stuff off.
Right.
And it takes a lot of capital to do it too.
Yeah. Cause you're like, can I, take my family to Europe for, a month, or would it be better to pay, this house down, $40,000 or $50,000? It's like, it's a tough decision to, and I'm not taking my family to Europe anytime soon for a month, but,
come on.
but like the idea is like, you could spend it on something else and you can get that instant gratification, but is that really going to make you happier to the point that that the other thing can provide security and freedom down the line? Just got to be a little patient. And so, like, if you just find yourself to be a fundamentally happy person, which I find myself to be, like, those expenditures I know are not going to make me so much more happy that it would jeopardize what the plan is.
Yeah.
Because I'm happy going to like this little coffee shop by my house with my family and hanging out. Like, I'm just as happy there as I am, hanging out in Barcelona. It's just like, it's another place that I get to spend with people that I love.
Yeah.
That's it. Know. So I try not to make decisions that would impact the security.
Yeah. Your plan on paying these down, is there a strategy behind that? Because it sounds like you've hinted at there's chunks that you allocate towards paying down certain properties. Is there like a strategy?
Not really. Just kind of like set it and forget it and just, let them take care of themselves. There might be some drastic move that I make where I'm like, all right, well, I can have my person and me, and that's it. And then she handles that. Well, I just, do my thing and, overpay her to do it so that I can be completely stress-free. Like, there is still some stress in my life that's, work related, that I have to do certain things. Like, I have to find a couple things. I have to do this. I have to do that. There will be a point in time where I don't want to deal with those stresses anymore. And I can just be like, all right, I'm going to sell 10 of these. They're completely, cash or debt-free, and pay down the rest of these, and then just live off the cash flow of these.
Yeah.
I met a guy who owns 74 properties. He's probably 65, 70 years old. He owns every single one of them, like debt-free. And he was going to do some of my lending. And that's the guy I want to be when I grow up. Like, just he I think it's just, stress is really about the person than it is about the properties you own or whatever. I think that it's just like, fundamentally, you have to be the type of person that either can deal with it really well or are just happy enough with what you have, and not like really going crazy to get more than you need, But I really think it's cool to just like have that money hit your account every month, on 74 properties. God knows what his rent is on those. Like,
oh my gosh.
I don't know, 70, let's say it's $1,000 a piece, $74,000 a month to just be like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that is very appealing to me. Even if it was half that, it would still be very appealing to me. So that's kind of where I want to be, is just, keep like a narrow focus, keep tunnel vision. And because I think that, with as intelligent as I am or am not, I know that if I just did the same thing over and over again, eventually I'm going to be really good at it, So like, if I just put the blinders on and keep moving forward and, don't deviate, that much, I'm eventually going to be, like an expert at this.
Yeah.
And so, it would be cool to have that, and then, potentially pass it down, to my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Is there like a timeline that you've set for yourself to be able to achieve that? Or are you just working until you can get to that point?
I don't know that I ever would, because I still find like the pursuit of deals, I still find that very intriguing and very stimulating.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if I'll ever stop doing that. But I think that I'm lucky that I found something that I really love doing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's ever a stop, but some part of me is like, when I hit 55, I'll not be like pursuing like things anymore. It'll just be like, if it comes to me and I can evaluate it and I can, make certain moves, then yeah, I'll do things. Or, I might eventually evolve into doing like major developments where I'm doing, 150 built to rent at a time.
Yeah.
But it's one deal.
Yeah.
But I'm doing multiple at a time. I mean, those are the best deals that I have. Are the ones where I do like 3 or 5 or 4 at once. It really acts as one deal, one payment, one contractor, it's just they're building 4 houses at a time. Those are really cool to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that might build to like 15 or 20 or 40. I like those. Those are cool.
Yeah.
So that would be stimulating. Yeah.
Are you doing anything outside of the just building and build to rent?
Not really.
No more flips?
No more flips. I hopefully I did my last one. It's under contract for sale right now. If something comes along that's cool, I don't mind doing like an outlier if it's cool and like exciting. I'll do it just to scratch the itch. But I also really enjoy like not being somebody who manages subcontractors. I have like really great ones, and it's unfortunate that I probably won't work with them as much anymore. But I do really enjoy the freedom to do what I want when I want.
Yeah,
that's like the best part about what we do is the freedom.
For sure.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know today, what were some of the limiting beliefs that you had at the beginning that held you back from doing more?
Yeah, this is a big one because I put such value in what I thought people thought of me for way too long. And I never really understood it until I got out of working for companies, is that like, and I've said this before on other things, is that like people don't care about you the way that you think that they do. Like you are fleeting to them, like you're on social media a little bit and like you get a bad comment and like that person, the amount of effort that it takes for them to do that is so small.
Yeah.
And then you're gone to them. Like they'll put something there because the effort is low. If it took them like more effort to be, they wouldn't be, right? So like inversely thinking of that, people don't care about you, not the way that you think that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, maybe it's ego or whatever, that people are like, oh man, that person like really hates me and they said this and they, I don't know if it's like my ego's gotten bigger or significantly smaller. It's just like, I know that there's a handful of people that care about me.
Yeah.
Like to the point that it matters. There are people that care. They're like, oh, it's Tommy's birthday today. Happy birthday. But it's easy to say that, right? So if I looking back, I would have stopped caring to the level that I did, where I would adjust my life to what somebody's opinion was of, what I was doing. And I put a lot of value into other people's opinions, but you really shouldn't. And I mean that in a good way, not in a like the world, like they don't know, I would say that like they don't care the way that you think that they do.
Well, how did that impact your investing career at the beginning?
Well, I just was like, I need to do more stuff. People are doing more stuff. If I'm not doing more stuff, I always had this kind of chip on my shoulder that like, like I wanted to like prove to you I knew what I was doing, or I know what I'm doing, or I'm smart enough. And it's really like people don't care, like they don't care. They don't care if you're smart, dumb, whatever, they're all kind of like fleeting in the process. So I would have put more attention into the value of the work that I was doing and the more concise stuff rather than like, I got to get one more. I got to get one more. I got to make that 100,000. I got to make that 200,000.
Yeah.
Like I put such value in like the numbers that I was doing in the beginning to try and like prove to somebody who didn't really care. But, you know, like I just eventually when it set in that, you know, that it's not that like I don't matter. It's just that I matter to very few, you know? So that's kind of like the defining like moment of my probably life, but, you know, investing career for sure is that really realizing that I don't matter to a lot of people.
I mean, you do matter
in a sense, but like not to the point where like people are like, God, that Tommy MaGill, like they don't care. like if I post something, you know, and I would get nervous about posting stuff because I was like, oh man, if somebody like doesn't like it and they comment and they, you know, they want, you know, I had this woman one time, she got pissed off at me because my aunt was dying of cancer. And I said, listen, this weekend, I can't, because I sold her a house. It was a flip, but like the drainage line out to the street was getting clogged, and like I was, you know, I snaked it, and like it started to work again, and then like it got clogged again. Then I snaked it, and then like she was like, I was like, listen, I'm going to Florida this weekend, and my aunt is in hospice, and she was young. She was like in her late 50s, and I'm like, listen. Don't call me this weekend. I understand that you're having troubles. Call a plumber, call this, you know, don't call me. Cause I'm going to be in a place that like, I can't talk and I can't deal with this. Cause like, she was like my favorite aunt. And like, she was just awesome. So sure enough, I'm driving down. I get this phone call. She's like, you fucking idiot. You put the gas line to this property too high. And the cable guy hit it when he was like trenching his line. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like the gas line, you installed it. I'm like, this is a flip. I never touched the gas line to your property. And I said, I told you that I didn't want any phone calls this weekend. I said, you know where I'm at. You know what I'm doing. I said, I'm not dealing with you ever again. So, you know, so like she knew my social media handle, and I would post, and I just was so afraid that she was going to jump off and like say, this guy sucks. He's a bad investor, blah, blah, blah. And like, I was like afraid to like post stuff because I was, you know, and she was horrible. Like she was a horrible person. And like, eventually her husband called me and apologized. And I was like, look, I told you guys, this is the one weekend. Don't call me again. And so like, you know, he never called again. They never called again. But, you know, yeah, so like that was kind of like, you know, a fear that wasn't really necessary, you know, like it does, because I know that like it really wouldn't matter even if she did post, because somebody'd be like, oh, that lady Cynthia hates Tommy. All right, well, what are we having for dinner? You know, like nobody cares. It's not like the idea that you're a big deal to somebody else I think is like a silly thought.
Oh,
you know?
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And there's that allure on social media too. And I have discovered it as well. It's like, hey, you're going to put stuff out there, grow a following, all this. And it's like, there's none of these people on here that I shouldn't be saying this. But you look at some of the people that are following you, and like, you're just like, I honestly, I just want to post pictures of my kids and my family and not be bombarded by a bunch of strangers' opinions and stuff. Right. You know? So
but
that's an interesting thing.
Want to beat their chest. They want to tell you how they feel.
Yeah.
But like from your side, you just have to understand that they don't really feel that.
Right.
Like they're not thinking about you more than a couple seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are some of the most strategic relationships that you've had to get you where you are today?
Like the ones that mean the most, the ones that like really, you know, propelled me was obviously my mom and dad. for different reasons. You know, my mom is the hardest working person I've ever met. My dad is like, he's like a champion, you know, of people, a champion of like, you're always, you know, trying to be upbeat and positive, like you're doing well. You know, I brought a bad report card home. He's like, it's okay, man. The next one we're going to do better. We're going to do, you know, he was very positive. My mom, super, super hardworking, raised, like my parents got divorced when I was young, super, super hard worker, raised 3 boys by herself. Like she's the toughest person in the world. Outside of my family, like my brother was in the military, not outside, I mean, he's in my family. He was in the military, just like the idea that like, you know, when the planes hit the towers, he joined the military to go fight for the country, stuff like that. Like, you know, that's meaningful. Professionally, I just got lucky. I had really, really good bosses throughout my career, just guys that like wanted to take me under their wing, wanted to show me, you know, how, you know, there's a guy, Gary Ferguson was one of my first bosses. Guy Ralph Perriera was another one of my first bosses. Guys that were like older, you know, 50s, 60s. They saw this young kid and they were like, we're going to try and help this guy out, you know?
Yeah.
Dave, my last boss, this guy, Dave Beam, just, he showed me that like, you can have fun and still like be respected. You know, like we joked around like 40% of the time and worked 60% of the time, but he's still like very respected in the industry.
Yeah.
Like I just lucked out, you know, or I don't know if I lucked out or if I just aligned myself along the way with people that really like knew how to have a good time, but also really knew and were really intelligent about building.
Yeah. Super cool. Okay. Looking back on your career, your life, how has real estate changed your life?
I mean, it's helped me create the life that I, you know, want and, you know, probably need is like, you know, I've always wanted to be a dad. And so when I became a dad, you know, I wanted to spend time with my kids, you know, so I get to see them whenever I want, you know, nothing gets in the way of that. And luckily I had my first son 5 years ago, which at that point was like getting closer and closer to the point of like almost true freedom, you know, where I wasn't like crazy involved too much. Probably like at the moment of his birth I was, but like, you know, he didn't know I was anything besides this like outline of a thing, you know, like he didn't know anything for like the first couple of years of his life. So, you know, 3 years ago when he started to become this little human and had a personality and stuff, like I was there.
Yeah. And
I'm always there and I'm always going to be there. And that's like the coolest thing that real estate has provided is that like, my focus really is like on my family and, you know, real estate is kind of second. I don't know if you know Tarl Yarber.
Yeah.
He's like a Bigger Pockets kind of guy.
I don't know him, but I know him.
Yeah. So I went to a mastermind with him and he said something that kind of resonated with me is that don't design your family around your business. Design your business around your family. And I was like, that makes so much more sense. You know, like there's so many people that are just grinding away and just some people just have it in them. Like they're just killers and they just want to go and move and build and strive and, you know, all this stuff where like, I'm not that or I'm not that anymore for, you know, or maybe at one point I was, but I'm definitely not that anymore. I would much rather just like, oh, let's go to the beach today, but it's Wednesday. So what? Let's just go, you know,
cool.
That's the things that are more appealing to me now. Like there was a moment where I was like, I even still have it in my wallet today. Live to 80, die a billionaire. And it's like, because I heard that one time Jim Carrey wrote a check to himself and he kept it in his wallet and he's like, I'm going to cash this one day. So I used that thought and then like, it's still in my wallet, but like really, I think the only way that's happening is if I win the lottery is because like my focus isn't that. My focus isn't money. My focus is totally freedom and just to spend time with my family. And like, there's more value in that to me than just having more money.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, if anybody wants to keep up with you, how do they do that?
Probably on Facebook, my name, Tommy MaGill, or Instagram, Tommy P. MaGill. That's it. And I buy land. So if anybody wants to sell me land that's listening to this.
Good land deals.
Yeah.
Not
good,
overpriced wholesaler deals.
Yeah. I am the Daniel Day-Lewis to buying land. Just give me the good stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was really fun.